2, 1. Welcome to the Lightforge. This is Adwicta.
This is Merps, and we are another week into Ungoro. Just trying to survive the meta. Nothing crazy specific to talk about. This has been interesting. It's been I want to say a long time. It hasn't actually been a long time, but we've had so much changes from 7.1 to the expansion release in the past 2 months or so that basically having a month without change seems like quite long.
Yeah, and it's a long time to be surviving what seems like a really big punch to your face repeatedly. At least that's how the Ungoro meta feels to me. After all the new players who went to the arena to check out the new cards left, the meta's definitely solidified into a pretty difficult meta that is questionably any less random than the 7.1 meta, I feel.
Right, and this is, we've seen these complaints sort of pop up once again, that, after the initial excitement and the initial influx of players, Ungoro just seems to be 7.1 with more powerful cards, right? And we have seen that it has gone back to being a very difficult landscape for new and experienced players alike.
Yeah.
So, with that, we don't have a very in-depth, deep-fried meta today. The meta is basically the same as it was last week and the week before that. You still have the top classes kicking butt, mages with all their spells, rogues with their removals, hunters going face, etc. So I think this week we want to, just go a little bit broader and answer people's questions of how exactly do you improve, right? This is a question that I've seen pop up on quite a bit recently.
Yeah, I mean, since Ungoro came up, it's been normally when a new meta comes along, there's going to be always a few people who are like, oh, I'm having a little trouble adjusting. What do I do? But it seems like there's the numbers of people asking, what do I do? How do I adjust to Ungoro has gone way up, and I think part of it is because it is really the biggest change in the meta we've had. So it makes sense that people aren't adjusting to it as well. On the other hand, I think a lot of it also has to do with just the scope of it, especially if these are people who have not really played 7.1 and were thinking about things from before. So it seems like a good point to kind of dial back a bit, and we'll get back into the meta stuff, and we'll get back into specific things. I think we're doing a hunter episode next week about how to win in this meta. But for now, I think it's really important to go back to the basics of how to learn, right? I think you brought this up earlier when we were talking, that we haven't had one of these on the Lightforge about the actual process of how to improve, rather than the specifics of what to do in this meta, or how many 2-drops do you need. But we haven't had a learning podcast in a while.
Right, and we did one of these, I would say, perhaps 30 episodes ago, which is a lifetime ago, right? And I think now is very important to bring up these ideas again and sort of add to them, because like I said before, I think a lot of people are trying to get good at Arena, and it seems like a very daunting task, right? I see a lot of people saying, I average 3, 4, 5 wins, and just the thought of getting better escapes me. And I understand, because I suck at a lot of other things, and getting better at those things escapes me. For example, Overwatch, right? I like playing the game. I'm not a terrible player, but when you look at the popular streamers and the top, not only the top 500 players, the top 50 players, top 20 players, it just it blows my mind. I'm like, how do I get there, right?
And the answer for me is not never. DPS stanky.
Well, and the answer for me is never, because I'm too old and I'll never have the fast twitch necessary. But you understand my point. Yeah. It's sort of like the internet meme of the owl drawing, right? It's draw a circle and then draw the rest of the owl. It's for a lot of people, it seems like that's how you improve in the arena. It's this amorphous, intangible process, and that's what we're going to try to break
learn
down.
what card advantage and tempo is. Step 2, look at a tier list. Step 3, win games and become infinite.
Yeah, basically. That's even. I mean, that's twice as in depth as the owl one. You added a
I
good
mean,
secondary step
I
in
wanna
there.
make it easier for people to draw the owl. You know, I hear they have difficulty with the owl thing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Owls are tough, man. So we're here to give you a few pointers, and in the coming weeks, I want to expand on one of these points. But today, I want to offer sort of 4 things that you should be doing, whether you are brand new or you have some experience, but you're still trying to get to that 7+ wins infinite level. So first, I want to talk about getting a co-op partner, right? Number one, baseline, go find a partner. But there's a little bit more. There's a little bit more to this.
Yeah, draw a circle.
Yeah, yeah. Well, no, that's step one. Draw a circle would be find a person. So first of all, you might ask, where do I find a partner? You can easily find people post on the official subreddit and also the Arena HS subreddit all the time. There are sort of Skype groups and Discord groups for that as well. You want to find a player that you're similarly skilled to. And this is exactly what Advocate and I did at the very, very beginning when we were both terrible at the arena, or pretty average, right?
We were average. We started off not terrible relative to other people in the arena. We started off terrible relative to people in the arena right now.
Right, fair. But you want to find someone who is similarly skilled level. And this is important because I see a lot of people asking, it's like, hey, can someone who is infinite play with me? And that's fine for like some coaching sessions. But number one, the infinite player was probably going to get frustrated at times. Like, they're basically like going to carry you, right? Or they're basically explaining a lot of stuff. And also this forces both of you guys to do the same explanation, to sort of go back and forth, really play around with these ideas, right? And the most important the most important effect, of having a co-op partner is to just have someone that forces you to explain your plays, because you can't, at least at the very beginning, we do this now. You can't just be like, okay, so that thing goes into that thing because right?
Yeah,
So you can't do that. You have to say, okay, I think we coin out the 2-drop because we have this follow-up, and I think we coined this one first because X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, like once you draw a couple of owls, you can just be like, draw the rest of the owl. But you gotta draw the first couple of owls like pretty specifically when the instructions come.
Yeah. So I think that's the benefit of playing with someone who is similarly skilled and just playing with someone in general, right? Having a sounding board is just really good. Also, when you play with someone who is similar to your skill level, one of the other benefits is, I always like to say this, good players are good in very similar ways. Bad players are bad in many, many different ways. And by bad, I mean, average players. So sorry guys. I might have ruffled some feathers there, but
ruffled my feathers.
All right. Anyways, so if you are like, say, a 4-win average player and you're pairing up with another 4-win average player, you guys will have very, very different strengths and weaknesses. So you guys will be able to patch up those weaknesses very quickly. And so combined with the fact that you're forcing each other to talk about plays, and the fact that you guys, unless it's like the luckiest, or I guess unluckiest pairing in the world, you guys will help each other out so much in the beginning, just because your strengths and weaknesses will be very different. And by just doing that, I would say, in a short period of time, you should be able to see significant improvement.
And it's fun because you guys are going to do better than just one person, because you're like actually fixing each other's weaknesses. Whereas if you're playing with someone way better than you, you're just going to play at the rate of whatever the person who is better is, and like maybe a little worse than that actually,
right?
Because there's more time spent explaining stuff. So it's a good feeling. It feels nice.
It feels nice. Also, you want to stick with the same person for quite a while. So find someone who is similarly dedicated to you. You don't have to find a obsessive, neurotic arena player like myself or Advocta, but just find someone who sort of has the same ambition, the same goals, and the same drive as you do, because you want to get comfortable in that sort of co-op relationship, right? And to build upon that. Plus, I just think it's fun. You make a friend, an actual person. Well, what I believe is an actual person. I don't know. Technology these days, you never really know. But with an actual person. So, Advocta, do you have anything to add about this?
No, it's just another perspective, right? Like someone else who sees like stuff that you never questioned before. Like, oh, of course I do this play. I've always done this play. Why? I don't know. I've seen other people do this play maybe, and I've done it every single time this situation's happened. And then someone comes out and goes, but what if you did it this other way? It may not be right, but what if you did it this other way? And you have to be like, oh, so why am I doing it this way? Why do I just drop a 3-drop on turn 4 if the board is clear and I have nothing else to do? Is that always the right play? Like, and just thinking about it makes you a better player.
Right. And this touches upon one of the topics a little later on, but I'll just say, when you're forcing yourself to explain your plays as well, you're forcing yourself to prioritize at the same time, because you have to prioritize, like, what do I say first? It can't just be, well, it could, but hopefully the both of you guys don't just go like the 70 seconds with silence, and at the end it's like, I don't know. And then the person with the mouse just makes a play. It can happen
does not make a play.
Or does not make a play. It can happen the first few times. It's fine as you're getting to know the person. But hopefully afterwards, you guys, can go into the think tank a little bit, and then you have to begin prioritizing what exactly do you say, because playing co-op is even harder initially. And some people say it's just harder, period, than playing by yourself, because your time is shortened so much. So that's something that it also does. So we're touching upon like bullet point number 3, making your own checklist, but it definitely helps you make your own checklist and prioritize the turn. So that's number 1. Find a person, that you somewhat enjoy playing the game with. You guys can have fun. Make a friend.
Step 1, create a person. All right, what's step 2?
Step 2. So these aren't actually steps. They're more of stuff that you can do, right? Like, you don't necessarily have to do these in the order. It's like, oh, I can't find a friend, I can't go on to step 2. No.
Although, really, if you can't find a friend, that should always be your first focus, like Hearthstone or not.
Oh, right. Outside of, general life advice, having a friend is
just one
probably
friend.
Good.
Just one friend. The first friend makes the biggest difference.
Yeah, didn't they do a study? It's like, if you don't have human companionship, you die really early or something.
Yeah, and you start going insane too. Yeah. But if you just have like one person, it gets a lot better, and like 2 people, it's just diminishing returns to friends,
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't. Yeah. Oh my God, more people? No.
Yeah, no.
So not step number 2. Bulletin point number 2 is record your games, and there are plenty of tools that you can use to record your games. For some reason, I can't think of the name off the top of my head.
So Hearthstone Replay is probably the simplest way, because it actually lists out your steps, and it doesn't actually record a video or anything like that. It just it tracks your actual play. So you can go back and go oh, what was my last play? What was my last play? Or you could just, if you have any kind of video recording software, whether it's OBS or if it's whatever the NVIDIA one, a shadow play or whatever, you can just record a play session. Either way, that's highly, highly useful as well.
Right. So I definitely recommend HS Replay. You can also record yourself, actually recording yourself. That's fine as well. But what this allows is, first of all, it gives you a repository of your game, so you can go back and look, right? You can go back and look. And why is looking back at your games important? You want to see how correct you were, how incorrect you were. So part of the learning process is also, as you're discussing it with your friend and saying on turn 5, it's I think we should play around this. Your friend says, no, I think we should do this other move because it's a little bit more tempo. Part of sort of your decision-making process is, you have a read on something. Your friend has a read on something else, right? You want to check on this read. Or also, you know, at that point you have a feeling of, oh, what is their second card in their hand, right? And then it's hard to juggle these things and talk with your friend at the same time. If you record your games, both of you guys can go back.
Yeah, and also if you don't agree, you can then just put it on Reddit, and then someone will say something, right? And then eventually, if it's a close enough play, there'll be a lot of different things. But if everyone sides on one side, it's probably the right play, right? Like, yeah. So that's a good way to like break ties after the fact too. If you get into one of those like, oh, I think this play, I think it's that play. Well, let's see, and then like something happens. And you're like, okay, well, does that mean I was right, or does that mean the other person was right? I still don't know, right? Like, because we all knew like things could happen. So putting it on the internet will help when it comes to stuff like that.
Right. So think this process, recording your games, going back and looking at them, thinking critically about games. I think that's so important because I know the #1 advice for a lot of new players is, oh, just play the game more, which is important. You obviously have to play the game.
That's true for new players. I think that's what's key. Like, once you get past the, like, I'm a new player, I just need to know what is going on, and having more experiences will help my human brain create pattern recognitions that will help me. Like, whatever you get past that point, which I think you generally get past at, like, the 4-win average, 5-win average period, to really take the next step, it's very helpful to get this other human perspective.
Right. So I will say, Adwicton and I, when compared to a lot of players, like, we don't have many games under our belt, right? Like, you know, if you look at a lot of the popular arena streamers, for example, like I think Ratsma has our games combined. I think Ratsma still has double or triple. Double or triple,
probably
both
triple.
of our games combined, in the arena. So, you know, Ratsma has a repository of information that, you know, we don't have. Same with someone like Hafu, right, who's played so many more games than we have. But, you know, we were able to sort of catch up by just careful analysis and a lot of back and forth, right? Like, by really analyzing these games, you can really expedite the process. Because you can either learn by doing over and over and over and over again, and eventually you learn, or you can just really pound it into your head the first time, assuming that you're correct, right? Which is sort of what we're trying to do here. So this is what's really important about just thinking critically, going back, reviewing with the person that disagreed with you. And maybe you won't reach a consensus, maybe you will, maybe you won't, but it gets you thinking about it. And next time, it's like, because you went through that process extensively, it's pounded into your head. Yeah.
So here's the thing with recording games. I hate recording games and watching it back myself. It's the same way that I hate checking my work. Like, I very rarely check my work unless I absolutely have to. It's just the most painful process to me. But having someone else check my work, I'm totally comfortable with. So, like, if you are one of those, if you're like me and you're like, oh, this feels like such, like, I play this game for fun. I want to be good, but I also play for fun. It's not fun for me to review my games and, like, you know, try to, like, I'm not as try-hard as you guys, right? Like, that's fine. You could just have someone else review your games. And then, when they have, like, comments, then you go back and you look at it, and it's kind of like a new thing, right? Because now you're looking at it from their perspective. It's not like, if I would go back and review my game, for the most part, like 99% of the time, I would be like, yep, I did that, I would still do that. Yep, I did that, I would still do that. Like, it's not terribly helpful. Like, I may catch, like, the times where I'm like, oh, that was a misplay, but I would have caught that right afterwards anyway, like when I get punished, for example. So it depends on, like, the kind of person that you are and how you learn. But even if you don't learn by reviewing your own games, recording it and having someone else do it is going to be really helpful. And at least look at, like, a couple of your games. Like, even though I hate doing it, I did look at a few runs, like, back when I was, like, trying to get to Infinite, and it did really help a lot. Just because you never look at yourself play. So a lot of things become very apparent, just like your habits and what you do, and when you make a play at what speed. And that in of itself just gives you yourself a good amount of information about yourself, even if you're not going to, like, make it a habit to review, like, you know, every run you do or whatever.
Yeah. So, we say record games. The bigger picture is just like force yourself to critically think, right? It really is just force yourself to critically think. For some people, it is recording games and going back and like reviewing tape, right? Which to some people is just like, God, that sounds like the worst. Like, I'm trying to have fun here.
Yep.
But for some people, some people are weird in the head, like Adulta, and there's. But even Adulta doesn't like reviewing games, but Adulta does like winning. You do like winning. So, you might get excited by the fact that it's like, oh man, if I do this for like X number of hours, I can raise my average from 5.2 to 5.4 PogChamp.
That's huge.
That is huge. Record your games, review it, and I think something you brought up, which is very good as well. You have a good access to a lot of infinite players on the Arena HS subreddit, right? A lot of people are there ready to answer.
And especially as like a good question, right? Especially if you have like one particular play that you're like, oh, well, this obviously changed the game, but I don't know if I did it right or not. I did this. This is what I was thinking at the time. Pretty sure I was right, or I think I may have been wrong. But like, you just get that reinforcement of, hey, I'm not really thinking about this right. Right. Or even a game, like I love these games. Like I like reviewing other people's games. When I say I don't like reviewing games, I don't mean like I don't like reviewing Hearthstone games. I just mean my own games. I like reviewing other people's games because I can look at it and be like, oh, so here's the misplay that caused your entire game to spiral out. And if you're like a okay player, you may not like realize that that's when it spun out. You just realize like at a certain point you've lost the game. It's like turn 8. You're like, something has happened and I lost. Or you misidentify. You're like, he meteored me here, and that's why I lost. Whereas, if someone's reviewing your game, they could be like, well, your misplay here, or your playing of this card over that card, has caused you to not have this extra card on the board, or this extra card in your hand, or there's like 2 extra damage on his face, and that changed the whole scope of the game, so that he was able to win when he meteored you. Like, if you just assumed he was going to meteor you anyway, like, you could have still won.
Yep. So think critically about your turns. Think critically about your games, and go over it with your partner or the many players ready to help you on the Arena HS subreddit.
All right.
So
next,
point number 3: create your own checklist. This is so important. So what do I mean with checklist? We did a Lightforge about this previously. I think it was called inside the turn. Yeah. So that was where I went through my own mental checklist for when the turn begins to when the turn ends, and what I'm thinking about when it's the opponent's turn as well. I think this is so important for people to get down because when I do coaching sessions, and I understand, when people are on stream, it's added pressure. It's very hard, but the most difficult thing for a lot of people is to just prioritize, right? And to just think about, it's like, oh man, I have so much to do. This is okay. That's okay. I guess this is okay too. And then they never go through any sort of process, right? So at the very beginning, just make a checklist and say, and it doesn't even matter what order, you can just write down and actually physically write down. I'm actually serious. Physically write down, okay, here are the things I want to look for during my turn. And it could just be like, it could be as simple as like, okay, what did they play, right? And then what are my options, right? And then afterwards, you can think about what are my options next turn, And now you're thinking about, oh, well, I have these 3 options. What are my options next turn? It's like, oh, because I want to play the Cyclotron next turn, I can't play, the first of my 3 options because I would need to ping to follow that up. So I can't do that. I need to play the Cyclotron. So by thinking about your next turn, it impacts what you do for this turn as well. So just make this checklist, and then in that checklist will be like, what reads do I have, right? Like maybe on turn 4, I had a 5/4 out, and the Paladin did not play True Silver Champion.
Yep.
Right. That's a pretty good like if they just played a minion, it's like, okay, they should have played True Silver there. It doesn't matter what order it is, because if you ask me what my checklist is, it would look pretty different from other infinite players, even Aduto, in which I think our playstyle is like fairly similar, right? Like fairly similar. But our checklist would be quite different. So just make your own, tweak it as you play. But in the beginning, if you don't have this set up yet, write it down, actually just like point at it, go through it step by step. And you don't have to do it very often. Like once you do it for a few runs, it'll automatically
start doing it. Yeah, and I would recommend you split the checklist up. Have like main stuff and then like other stuff, because you don't always have time to look through all your main stuff. Like if you see your checklist has like 8 items, that's too much. Like remember, you have to conserve your mental resources. If your checklist starts with check lethal, you may want to move that to the optional side. And then you may want to start like looking. You may want to like start only looking at that when like the game gets to a certain number of turns, or when you start having a certain big enough stuff on the board, or when you draw your pyroblast, right? Like you may have some triggers, because at least for me, I have a limited brain, and I can't think about all the things all the time, and so it's very helpful to me to prioritize and say, here's the main checklist. The like 3 or 4 things I always do is 1. I see what like combinations of cards I can play this turn, and I see whenever I play these combinations of cards, what am I still able to play the next turn, right? Basically like a 1-turn planning for mana usage. Like I think that's very basic, and that's it. Like you will always do this, no matter what part of the game you're in, unless both of you are top decking or something. 2, I always say, why did he do just what he did? Like why did he just do what he did? So my opponent does something every single turn, or else I win. And whenever he does that, I think, well, it's only because 1, that is the best choice. 2, that is his only choice, in which case I have a read on all the things that he doesn't have. Or 3, he's setting me up for something. And that kind of like read and reinforcement, like I always assume my opponents are good players, which sometimes gets me into trouble, but I think it's like a good exercise for you to be doing, so that I can always beat the good players, right? Because I'm always assuming my opponents are a pretty good player. And pretty good players act logically, which also means pretty good players are easiest to beat, I think. And so I could get really good reads on pretty good players, and that nullifies a lot of their like good mechanical advantages, like they know how to trade on the board, they know how to prepare their mana. And so that's something else that I think should go into your checklist. And you should also make your checklist, I would say, heavier on the side of things that you can do on your opponent's turn, because you have more time on your opponent's turn. On your opponent's turn, you can't do anything, so you're just looking at your checklist, and you're looking at where he's hovering. On your turn, you're probably evaluating the card you just drew and all the other stuff. So you want to keep that as short as possible.
Right. So that is, I think, very important. And you know, if we're prioritizing what order you should do these things in, make your freaking checklist.
Yeah.
Like, make your checklist first, and then start playing your games. Go find a friend or whatever. But this is extremely, extremely important, especially if you're near the 3-win average, range. Yeah. I would say 99% of people who are just average or below average don't have a checklist, which is why they go 3 wins. Mm-hmm. They just go through a turn and they're like, I think this is okay,
this
right?
Good.
This looks good. They didn't analyze.
Or even not even this looks good. Like, this is something I can physically play, and the game will let me play that.
Right. And you know, I've seen this during coaching sessions as well. You know, when you really ask someone, why do you want to do this? They're like, it seems okay, right? Or you could tell they don't really have a reason why. It's just, well, Scar Crusader is a good card generally, right? Or their reasoning will be a very general sort of reason that is outside the context of the game, which makes it bad. Right, because you're almost blindly throwing cards out, exactly. Or you're blindly doing things and ignoring the fact that, you know, the mage did a really weird ping and seemed to slow down the turn before, right? Mm-hmm. So what could that possibly mean? So this is, I would say, the most important step, and it's obviously like the first step, or to me, it's obviously the first step. Please make it your first step to make your own checklist. And I think it's something that people don't catch, because when they watch streamers, like I'm not here with a notepad and with a pen and pointing at it. every streamer has their checklist, and they go through it like really quickly, very, very quickly. And I would say in like the 70-second turns, they go through their checklist in about 10 seconds, and the rest of the time is like really breaking down the small stuff. So that's what you should be doing. In the beginning, your checklist might take you the entire time, but make it, stick to it. It'll get faster, and you'll see your wins spike by like at least a win.
Yeah, at least a win just by doing that, just by like slowing down and doing that. So like one of the things that I think a lot of people watch a lot of stream, like because there's a lot of people that just play, you know, maybe listen to the podcast, maybe catch us once in a while, but generally don't like watch streams as like part of their daily routine. And there's other people who do, who like watch way more arena runs than they ever play, and you know, they could get better by watching streams, which is actually our next point. I just realized I've jumped the point. But our final thing is that something else that helps is watching streams. But if you only watch streams and you don't really like play that much, what I think your weakness is probably is the middle zone, which is what making your own checklist will really help with. Because you're probably really good at the easy stuff. Because one, you already knew it, and two, you just automatically do it every time the streamer makes any kind of play, right? We're talking about checking lethal. You know, we're talking about like very basic positioning stuff, right? Like things like that. Where we're talking about like, I don't know, maybe like tracking that they played the coin or not, but just something a lot of people do reflexively after like just having enough repetitions of something. And you're also probably a lot better at the really complicated stuff than other people your win rate, because that's what streamers mostly like agonize over, right? Like they mostly spend a lot of time thinking or explaining about like a particular thing, like, oh, I go face here, or I, you know, set up the board, right? Like stuff like that. You're probably better than most players who just play, because the streamer's probably doing it right, and you are like really trying to get into their heads. But what you're missing is that middle zone of the rest of the checklist that the streamer had already gone over in their heads, and so they're not even saying it, right? But is like a step beyond, like, can I kill him this turn?
Right. So, I think that's a good lead into the next point. You know, you mentioned streamers. Another good way to actively learn, and I think to really sort of boost your understanding of the game, is to watch streams and to carefully study streamers. I watched Trump when I first started playing the game. It was quite helpful, right? Like just to have someone who you know understood the game, played the game, and I would try to see, it's like, oh, why did Trump make this move? Why did he do that? Plus, it's just a fun experience, right? It's like having a very experienced co-op partner that kind of ignores you all the time, but you know they're there to help you. So when you watch streams, if you are serious about trying to use the stream to improve, there are a few ways. If you I think the best way to do it would actually be to watch VODs. I know a lot of people don't like that. I'll explain the VOD method. So the video on demand, you'd basically watch a video, pause it before every single play that the streamer does, and then go through your checklist and then and then say, okay, here's the move I would make. And then see, did the streamer make that move, right? Yeah. Now, look, the streamer is not always going to be correct. Everyone makes mistakes. They make plenty of mistakes. I tell people on my stream as well, even if I look back on like even 12 win runs, right? 12-1, 12-0 runs, I can still point to at least 5 to 6 mistakes that I made. Now, they're not huge mistakes, and I probably didn't get punished, or at least not severely for them.
Or you wouldn't get 12.
Or I wouldn't get 12, right. But they're, you know, slightly suboptimal plays, right? That maybe it was a misread, maybe it was just, you know, I was busy talking to chat or something. But streamers make mistakes all the time. And I know this weighs on some people. They're like, oh man, I'm pretty sure that you know, this Infinite player that I watched made a mistake. It probably happened, but if you are in the 3 to 4 win or 5, even like 6 win range, a lot of times you just have to say, okay, I have to assume it's correct, right? Most of the time I have to assume it's correct. Also, a lot of times
they say right afterwards that it's not correct. Like, listen, a lot of times streamers make misplays, and they catch them immediately, like within the next turn, right? They're like, oh crap, well, if I hadn't done that, this would have been a lot better.
Right. You basically have to assume that they are correct. But more important than that, find out, like, try to get inside of their head, why did they do that? And a lot of times the streamers will explain exactly why they made the play, right? It's because they had a certain read. It's because it's like, oh, we have to go all in here. Like, I can't play around Flame Strike, so on and so forth. But what you're trying to do is not, like, in the end, if you make the same play, that's great, but it's just like a math test, right? Like, if you reach the end result, but you had no understanding of, like, the work you had to show to get to it, it doesn't help. So you want the same thought process. And I would say the thought process is even more important. If you made the same thought process and you're like, okay, well, I think we need to play for tempo, but there was another play that might have been equally, like, good in tempo, and you made that one, it might be okay. Once again, if you're like a 3-win player, it's probably not great for you to, like, consistently criticize and be like, nah, this streamer has no idea what they're doing, just lucked out to 7 wins. But you want to get that thought process down. So that's how you would watch the VODs. And when you're watching live, it's just very similar, except you have much less time, right? Some people, like Adukta and I, we're very slow. When you watch Shady Bunny as well, he's very methodical.
It's funny that Shady Bunny's name is Bunny, because he's, like, at a snail's pace.
Only you would think this is funny. It's like the most. It's not even like 12-year-old humor. They don't even find that funny. This is like if a 3-year-old understood words, like, maybe they would think that would be funny. Like, you jangle keys in front of them and then you tell them this joke, and they're like, haha, I'm 3. That was hilarious.
I'm gonna choose to take that as a compliment.
Fantastic. So that is one of the things that is very difficult. And when you watch other good players who play very fast, like Ratsma or Hafu, for example, you don't really. It's very tough to learn, right? Because sometimes, like, they play very quickly, and then you don't get that sort of process. And if you don't think about it, like I said, it's just like a math test. If you don't work out how to get to an answer, you don't take away anything from it. Because if it's different, you don't understand. And even if it's the same, that's the scariest, because you might think you got it, but you didn't, right? You might say, I played this because I think it's the best tempo play, when in fact, like, the streamer just has a good read on the opponent and says, no, this is the reason why. If a similar situation comes up, you're probably going to get that one wrong, because you didn't really understand it. So that's, watch streams, and you can just passively watch as well, but sort of, the advice I'm giving you is how to actively watch and learn through the process.
Yep. All right. So that's the learning process. I think it's a good review, and we broadened it to, before we were just talking about our checklists, and now this is more of a whole improvement thing. So look, there's a lot to do, right? Like, if you do all this is like a serious, like, hobby thing. You don't have to do all of it, but this is just the best way to improve. Pick up on whichever part of it you want. Hopefully you do, if you don't do all 4 of these things, so it's get someone else's perspective, record your games, make your own checklist, and then watch streamers in the pause and play way. Or if your brain can keep up, you don't have to pause and play, and you watch a slower streamer. There's, like, I very rarely am able to keep up with Hafu or Ratsma when they're, like, just playing. Like, I'm like, wait, what'd you do? Why?
Right. And I will say, they do explain their plays, like, a good number of times, definitely. But even when they explain the plays, sometimes they play quite quickly as well, right? So, for example,
oh my god, like, watching a Hafu draft is, like, crazy to me. Like, watching it live, I'm, like, physically uncomfortable, because it really, like, it feels like she's just clicking on things randomly. I mean, I know she's not, but, like, the amount of time spent on the average card is so small.
So a lot of times they do explain their plays, but like I said, they will make their play in the span of 5 to 10 seconds more often than we do. And it gives the viewer, it'll give the viewer less time, if they want to actively learn, to sort of go through the same process. Because if you're trying to learn, there's no way you are going to think as quickly and make as good of a play. So that's the sort of inherent problem if you are trying to actively learn.
Yeah. So, okay, so those are the 4 things. And you should pick up, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 of them. Maybe take the one that you're like, I don't want to do that, and, like, don't do it. But, like, do the other 3. It'll really help. Because I'm sure you're probably doing, like, 1 of those, maybe 2 of those at most. So pick up an extra step or 2, and it'll really help you improve. Especially in this like meta. Like, I know the meta's like a little random, but there's still like a lot of room to improve even on your gameplay. And if you play this game and you think that the meta's gonna get like better or more skillful or whatever, it's the same skills, right? Like, you can learn these skills in any meta, even if it doesn't translate to as many wins as it normally would. Like, they're fundamental Hearthstone skills. They're not gonna change unless all of a sudden, I don't know, like, Hearthstone does something drastically different, right?
Right. So I would say these are the 4 really important things that you should be doing to improve your average in the arena. So, you know, look, we didn't go step by step on how to draw the owl. We didn't tell you how to draw every single feather, but we did.
Owls have feathers. We didn't even mention that owls had feathers, man.
No.
You know, when you told me to draw an owl, I really was not thinking about feathers. I was focused on, like, the eyes and the beak and the body and the talons.
Different people see things differently. Different checklists.
Yeah, you know? different checklists. Oh, wow.
There you go.
Feathers.
Yeah, I know.
The positioning of owls. Question from the GOAT. Let's move on to that. Question from the GOAT, by the way, is brought to you by our patrons. And we have some top patrons for the month of, I guess, April that just passed. And they are 4P, Afro Ninja TB, Talon, Famous Wild Goat, Ingo, Zaruvi, and Ugbog. Thank you guys so much for your support. It's patreon.com/grinninggoat if you guys want to support the podcast, the YouTube, the stream, all of our stuff. Thank you guys so much for feeding the goat. So what is the question from the goat? And by the way, if you're wondering what the question of the GOAT is, it's not really necessarily a question from, like, our viewers, or, like, if you write us, like, either you tweet us, you put it in our subreddit. We have a subreddit, by the way, if you don't know. It's subreddit's name is Grinning Goat. Or you, like, just find some way to message it to us. We'll like, you know, look at it and give it heavy consideration to put in these. But otherwise, question of the GOAT just comes from, like, Merps's head.
Yeah, it basically does. So I would admit, I did not really prepare this question. I just thought of it like 10 seconds ago.
Oh, damn.
But it is something I'm curious about. So, you know, like, next week, we are going to be playing a lot of Heroes of the Storm. Not by our own choosing, right?
Yes. I would not be playing Heroes of the Storm if I had a choice. But they give you Overwatch exclusives, and I want those.
Right.
And hey, don't they have, like, a tie-in with Hearthstone too? Like, we get a pack or a card back or something, right? Because I've never logged in to, like, Heroes of the Storm. They have to have some kind of cross promotion with Hearthstone. I can't imagine that they don't.
Right. No, I don't think they do, or not really, which is a real shame.
Wait, like, do they really not? No, they have to. I think it's just, like, so old that we just didn't do it, that, like, it didn't... There's gotta be something.
No, I don't think there is.
What?
So, I mean, that's basically, my question. Like, there's not really any synergy right now between Hearthstone.
Twitch chat tells us that there is a card back, all right? So we're at least getting a card back. No,
that's not really the synergy. Like, I want to see some actual synergy. Like, I guess
if you're good enough with, I don't know, Uther in in Heroes of the Storm, that you get, like, extra Paladin cards or something?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to see something that is an actual synergy between the two, not just like a thrown in card back. Because look, at this point, card backs, God, they don't do anything.
Card backs are a little weird.
They are nothing.
Yeah.
They are nothing. They are the most forgettable things, but they are the only things for Hearthstone.
Yeah.
Which is, like, really disappointing.
Just give packs. Like, I think it could be cross promoted so that if you play, like, let's say 10 hours of Heroes of the Storm, it's the equivalent of playing 1 hour of all the other Blizzard games in terms of rewards, and vice versa. So that way, it keeps you within the, like, Blizzard can keep you within the Blizzard universe. Because Blizzard doesn't really care if you, I mean, I'm sure the Hearthstone team and the Heroes of the Storm team cares, but Blizzard as a whole doesn't really care if you play, like, Overwatch or Hearthstone or Heroes of the Storm. You just need to be playing their products.
Yeah, but I do want to see a little bit more of like a cross promotion thing. For example, like the game boards, right, in Hearthstone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they put Hanamura in the Nexus, right? The Heroes of the Storm. Why not a Hanamura board in Hearthstone? Be okay with that? Like, it would just look cool, right? It wouldn't even look out of place. You just have, like the pagoda. You'd have the cherry blossoms. You'd have all this stuff.
I mean, they made turtle people. I guess like Hearthstone's in a weird place right now, right? Where it used to be Hearthstone Heroes of Warcraft, and it was just like a Warcraft spin-off card game where all the lore is from Warcraft, everything's from Warcraft. Now they're like making their own lore that's still technically a part of Warcraft lore, and Blizzard's gonna probably try to stay consistent with it. But it's like never really seen in Warcraft. They made whole new like types of people, made them turtles. Like that really took me for a spin when I found out the Tortolians are not actually, like, they were like briefly mentioned by something in Warcraft, but there's not like a single Tortolian that like you see in World of Warcraft. And you don't like, they're not like a quest, they're not a people, there's not like extensive lore about them. And then in Hearthstone, all of a sudden you get like 10 people cards.
Yep. I don't know. It's an interesting question for sure, because I know some people are saying, well, Hearthstone is still, they haven't incorporated other stuff. We don't want Hearthstone to just, have Diablo in it and everything. That's sort of the specialness of Heroes of the Storm, right? They take it's just a crazy messed up universe.
What is Hearthstone, right? That's my question. Is it like just a Warcraft game? Because they don't seem to want it to be. They seem to want it to be like building on the World of Warcraft in like a real like way.
Right.
And it's not only that, World of Warcraft has Diablo stuff in it. It has StarCraft stuff in it. You can get like mounts and you can get like little thing pets or whatever that are otherwise not supposed to be in a normal World of Warcraft setting.
Right. So like my idea, I think, is very unintrusive, right? Just have a Hanamura board. It doesn't have because a place like Hanamura, it doesn't look. It wouldn't look terrifically out of place, right? You'd have the cherry blossoms, you'd have like the stores, and you'd have that big in Hanamura at the very beginning, there's even that big statue of the Murloc, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you could have that. And then it's perfect. Yeah. Like, you'd have a board at which, if no one played Overwatch but they played Hearthstone and they looked at it, they would be like, oh, okay, this makes sense. I don't know where it's from, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know why they don't have that.
Yeah,
I want to see more.
And as a hero, you can have like new heroes, right? You can have like, instead of rogues being replaced with other stuff, you can have like Genji as a rogue.
Oh God.
You gotta give the weeb something, man. I think it'll expand the popularity of the game. That's all I'm saying.
I don't know. I don't know. The role playing would be very high. Everyone would just draft like shurikens and petals. It would just be shuriken and petals all the way. Yeah. Anyways.
Okay. That's a question from the GOAT.
Yes.
I assume that was the question from the GOAT. I don't think you actually asked the question, but we talked about it.
Well, I was about to ask you, but we organically just skipped through the question.
Organic. Yeah. That's not what this podcast is about. Okay, card good bad. Let's get back to Hearthstone in the gameplay and like the actual meta of Ongoro. Card good bad today is Spike Ridge Steed, because we went with the Emerald Hive Queen last time, which was like not a very good card. We wanted to talk about it. We wanted to do something uncontroversial today, and that is Spike Ridge Steed. It is 159 on the tier list, which is like less than 10 points off of True Silver. It is one of the best cards ever released for the Paladin, which is one of the classes with some of like the top cards. So it's not a cog hammer or anything like that, but it is a auto pick. And I don't think anyone really disagrees with how much of an auto pick it is. I think when people were rating it before, some people thought it was ridiculously premium and some people thought it was really good. But now everyone agrees it's ridiculously premium. We haven't changed the score since release because we think this is a good score. And I just kind of want to talk about how you play Spike Ridge Steed. Let's not even go how you play against it. Like, where does Spike Ridge Steed shine?
Okay, so part of what makes Spike Ridge Steed so good is that it shines whenever you can freaking play it on one of your minions, right? Now, we can go past that. Basically, where it really shines is the fact that Spike Ridge Steed, when you play it, if they don't, first of all, it's 2 bodies, right? So it limits the hard removals that you can use against it. You know, a polymorph or a hex or some sort of silence is obviously really good. But if people are just using damage removals, they have to take care of the second body. And it does something for paladins that paladins sometimes have a hard time doing, which is immediate board impact, right? Not only does, you know, if you have a minion with initiative, you can buff it, you can hit into something. But the beauty of Spike Ridge Steed is that you can also just drop something, steed it, and assuming they don't have one of those, you know, silence hard removals, they have to deal with it. It's almost as good as initiative for a paladin there.
Yeah, exactly. And like, think about it, compare it with, so this is like Spike Ridge Steed is 6 mana, so that's a lot. Blessing of Kings is 4 mana. But you compare it to Blessing of Kings, you Blessing of Kings something, and then you kill something with it, right? All good. The next turn, they just get rid of it. Or they ignore it and go face. And you're still in trouble, right? Because as the Paladin, you're trying to build up something, and then you're trying to either hit their face, or you're trying to somehow control the board with your board. So once you get this taunt out there, they have to kill it. It's very inefficient for them to kill, because remember, Spike Ridge Steed gives you a lot more health than it gives you attack. So it's like the last thing they want to be hitting. And especially because there's a death rattle on there. So even after they kill it, they're still not going to get through. It like ultimately protects whatever it is you put out there, right? You force them to actually have a spell to remove it. And that's problematic, because a lot of the times you think of like chargers and weapons as removal also. So you may have like prepared for, you know, your opponent to play something ridiculous like Questing Adventure or like Blessing of Wisdom on something, but you prepared it with a weapon, or you prepared it with a charger, and now you can't. Now you don't get through for like a turn or even 2 turns. So it's game winning in that way. So when you're building a deck, you could build big with Spike Ridge Steed, in the sense that you get a lot of card draws and whatever, and you survive to the late game, and this one just keeps taunting like for you, right? Like it gives you 12 health worth of taunt on bodies that matter.
Right.
Or you can do the mid-game switch thing where you can Spike Ridge Steed something after you have a board and then go face, and your opponent can't remove the rest of your board. That's a little more vulnerable because your opponent can still taunt themselves. They can still board clear. So what you really want to do with Spike Ridge Steed, that's like a situational use of Spike Ridge Steed. What you really want to do is Spike Ridge Steed to get the card advantage, to get the board, to get the good trades on the board, and to like value your opponents out. And the problem with Spike Ridge Steed is that it is 6 mana. It does have a conditional that you do need some kind of minion on the board for this to happen. So you want to lean towards like more flexible mid-game cards rather than like your Volcanosaurs, for example.
Right. So something I want to bring up was the exact sort of impact of Spike Ridge Steed on the meta, right? We don't like, we know it's a good card, and it's an extremely good card. But what I've seen because of Spike Ridge Steed, sort of how did Paladin rise up so much, right? You could I think they are definitely a top 4 class. You can argue that they're a top 3, and some people might even argue they're like a top 2 class, right? They like it so much. What Spike Ridge Steed does is it gives Paladins sort of a major tool in 2 of the 3 matchups when we're talking about, you know, the big 4, right? Mage, Rogue, Hunters, and then with Paladins. So I'm not going to talk about the mirror match because that's just whatever, you know? It's about who plays what, and it's kind of boring.
It's about who has more steeds, and so the board never moves.
Basically. Now, Rogue is still not a great matchup for Paladins, right?
I mean, Rogue hero power counters Paladin hero power.
Right. Rogue also has tons of efficient removals, right? So it's still not great for Paladins. But Spike Ridge Steed, when you're facing Hunters, my gosh, it is, you know, when I am the Hunter, and when I'm looking ahead to, you know, turn 4, turn 5, turn 6, I have a difficult decision to make because there's a good chance they have Steed in their hand. And if they Steed, I probably just lose, right? But then what do? Do I keep on clearing? That uses up a lot of my resources at the same time, right? So it really has sort of changed the Hunter matchup, in which like Steed will just win you so many games against Hunter that you probably don't win with any other card, because it is an automatic 12 HP, right? With like a decent amount of attack. But it is basically just you heal so much. And the Hunter also has a difficult choice if they only have something like a Deadly Shot, right? So if they keep on going face and they Spike Ridge Seed one thing, and now it's like a 5/11 or something, let's just say that. If it's like a 5/11 minion, and they also have a couple 1/1s behind it, you can't rely on your Deadly Shot, right? So you need so much tools as a Hunter to be able to push through, and you have to make that really tough decision on turn 4 and turn 5. It's like, gosh, do I get rid of it? Like, do I not give them a Steed turn? But then I'm sort of back to, I have to keep on removing it, otherwise they Steed. So like,
it's a no-win situation.
It's a no-win situation, and it really forces the Hunter to have more than they should have in order to beat a Paladin. And when you look at the Mage matchup, Spike Ridge Steed, and to an effect Dino Size as well, it's weird because if you look at the Paladin versus Mage matchup historically, I would say, if you just track the entire time, Mage has been quite good against Paladin. Right? It's like the hero power is basically just, they're charging out the dude and hitting something. But now Paladins are actually really, really annoying for mages, because mages are going to be a bit slower than Paladins. And so Paladins are probably able to get on the board just a little bit faster. They also have weapons
and
that
mages that are faster than the Paladins are not good, because your Paladin Spike Ridge Steeds and you're dead. Right.
So Paladins, with the addition of like Lost in the Jungle, with all of their just ways to get on the board, and mages just being very slow these days, Paladins are able to get that snowball, and then they're able to get down that Steed. They're able to create these really awkward board states that mages, even with their really powerful spells, are on the back foot, right? And they're taking damage every single turn. So even if they remove, at a certain point, the Paladin, because of the snowball, they're going to bring the mage down, and the mage is going to run out of answers. And Spike Ridge, it all begins with Spike Ridge Steed. Like, without Spike Ridge Steed, the mage doesn't really have to worry, or they're able to clear and prevent the turn 8 Dino Size. So it's just really, really interesting how this one premium card like gave Paladins a favorable sort of matchup against two of the other top classes in the meta.
Yep. And even Rogue is not terrible against. Because what do rogues do? They hard remove, right? What happens when you hard remove a Spike Ridge Steed target? You get a 2/6 taunt still, right? It like actually hedges against what the rogue is doing. I mean, the rogue could keep pushing and doing other stuff, but still it puts a hitch in the rogue step. It's not like it's a bad matchup against rogue. But yeah, it totally dominates the other two matchups. All right, well, that's it for card good bad. Spike Ridge Steed 159. Definitely good. Class talk is mage. We're going to do a mage run today. We are backed up with not having done mages for like in 2016. So now in 2017, we're playing a lot of mages, and it's a decent place for a mage. It's not the best, but mage is usually recognized as one of the top classes in the meta. It usually goes rogue, then mage. We have them in the second tier along with hunter. And it's really, I think the interesting part about Mage and Ungoro is the card that's carrying it is technically Meteor, but you only see half a Meteor per draft, less than that actually. So yes, when you're playing against a Mage, you think, oh, how many bad Mages are there that are only getting by because they have 1 or 2 Meteors? Sure. And if you get to like 10 wins, yes, all the Mages have Meteors probably. But past that, you have like Flame Geyser, Flame Geyser, and then you have the Steam Elemental that gives you a Flame Geyser, and they're decent cards, but they're really more like cards that get you other cards, right? Like Steam Geyser gives you a 1/2 Elemental for 1 mana, and Yeah? I'm getting these Steam cards and Geyser cards
Yeah,
mixed up.
Steam Geyser is a 2 mana, deal 2 damage, gives you a 1 mana, 1/2 elemental.
There we go. Steam Surger gives you a Steam Geyser.
Yes.
If you had played an elemental before, and is otherwise like a totally normally statted 4-drop. So you get this like elemental chain going potentially. And again, right, these are not cards that are seen too often in your draft. You're going to get, on average, like definitely less than one of each of those. But they make mage drafts kind of interesting in that it can go a bunch of different ways. But no matter which way it goes, it's always leaning control. Because all of these cards are control. Your other cards are what, like a 2/1, basically like a better version of a Loot Hoarder, right? That's one of your cards. Like you have another card that's 2 mana, draw, like discover a spell, and then reduce that spell by two mana. Like they're all kind of slowish cards. So you're building this archetype, and even though you have enough 1-drops and 2-drops, and you definitely have enough face damage to be able to create a deck that pushes, all of your Ungoro package is geared towards a control-y kind of mage.
Right. And it's the best sort of control. You know, how we talked about you don't want big stuff that goes all in on one minion, right? Well, if you're drafting control mage, a lot of times you are getting an elemental package. So you're getting the Steam Surgers, which gives you a Flame Geyser, right? You're drafting the Servant of Kalimoses, which just gives you a nice sturdy 4/5 body, and it draws you a card as well, right? The Blaze Callers, which deal damage. It's basically like a OP Firelands Portal. And at the same time, Mage also has just a slightly bit more flexibility in game because of Primordial Glyph, right? Which I think is sort of those underrated cards that really had a major effect for the mage, because you are able to choose in game, right? And we can see now how powerful choosing later on, given more information, gives. So Primordial Glyph, really good. Sort of the elemental package, just really good for controlled mage. Yep. So even though mages didn't get like too many obscenely powerful cards, they got Meteor, but like you said, that is an epic. Everything just went right for the mage in terms of how they want to play and sort of how these cards fit in the meta.
Yep. Because the meta is all about taunt and slowness and things like that, right? So it puts the mage in a good spot. The one problem that I have with the mage right now is that it's a slower kind of like playstyle, which generally like is fine skill wise, but there are so many random cards with the mage. Like your good cards now are all random. Like I see people draft Cabala's Tome like insanely high. Why?
Oh yeah.
Because they don't care about the randomness, because that's how they win. And depending on your win rate, that could be a good idea. And as the mage, you could also think, look, everything's so random anyway, right? And everything's so random anyway, if I add enough randomness, it actually kind of evens out. Like if I just have one random element, it's not good because it could win or lose me the game. But if I have a whole ton of randomness, it actually like stabilizes it rather than makes it more random. So it's kind of it's a weird place for the mage to be in, because the mage traditionally has not had like that many random elements. It's been a pretty normal like on the board kind of thing. But now you have like Firelands Portals. Now you have like what is the elemental called? The like the 2/1 2 mana Loot Hoarder guy that gives
Shimmering
you a spell.
Tempest.
Yeah, Shimmering Tempest. So you have that. You have you still have Cabala's Tome. You still have the book. You have Primordial Glyphs now. Like, there's just so many things that like literally has the word random in the package. So it's in a weird place. I don't really like to play. I usually love to play mage. Like, even when all the other good arena streamers were like, oh, mage, too powerful or whatever, I don't want to play mage. I've enjoyed the playstyle of mage. It's very normal, it's druid-like, but like more powerful. And I think it requires a good amount of skill to like actually get the maximum out of mage. So it's low skill floor and high skill ceiling, I think. But in Ungoro, I think the skill ceiling has been brought down a lot on the mage because of all the randomness, and especially in 7.1.
Wait, so isn't it high floor and high ceiling?
Well, hold on. No. It's a low skill floor. Because a skill floor, the higher it is...
The floor is like what people, like, no matter what. Like, it's a high floor.
No. It's a high floor if it takes a higher amount of skill to make him minimally competent.
No, it's a floor. Like, no one can go below it.
No, that's not how it works.
Like, they start off high. I thought that's what it was. No, and this is a legit question. Like, I'm not 100% sure I'm correct, but I thought it was, like, because I see people using it differently.
Yeah.
And I thought that was, like, if it, you know, like, in the context that we're talking about, I thought it was supposed to be high skill floor and also high skill ceiling.
Okay, so it's definitely high skill ceiling. It's a high skill floor or low skill floor, but when we mean, like, you don't have to be very skilled to use it very well.
Yeah. So it's like when you begin with the mage, you know, you got all these powerful spells. So like we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm just I'm just unsure of which one is correct there. Let us know, guys. Let us know.
All right. So that's the important thing that we got done in the Lightforge today. We've posed you a question about what skill floor actually means. Okay, so that's the mage. You have anything else to add about the mage?
No, that's basically it.
All right, and so that's our Lightforge. Tune in next week as we delve deeper into the Un'Goro meta itself with gameplay tips and things like that. Until next time, this is Oddwick Dub.
This is Mercs. See you guys.